Winter. Day 199. Saltburn by the sea to Runswick Bay. Route: Saltburn by the sea, Skelton, Broughton, Loftus, Staves, Hinderwell, Runswick Bay. County: North Yorkshire. I was feeling a little bit flat this morning. I'm not sure if it was because I'd just spent the last evening in a room of my own in front of the telly, or the fact that the BBC had just said that this was the most miserable day of the year, or something along those lines. It was Dad's birthday, so I gave him a quick call after leaving my Airbnb. On the way out the house I was staying at, a lady had fallen over. It was still dark, and I put my arms around her and pulled her up. It was chilly this morning, and she had a stream of dew running down from her nose. I'd planned to take the coastal path to save a bit of time. However, it was cold and the winds felt bitter. When I got to the junction at Skelton Beck, I took a right-hand turn instead of a left. I then followed the beck underneath the railway bridge. Last night I hadn't done my usual route planning and had left it until an hour or so before going to bed. The Ordnance Survey maps are filled with public footpaths, and so whilst I had a rough idea of the route that I wanted to take today, it was nice to choose my route as I went along. In the first section of the walk, the winds coming from the east were pretty brutal. This combined with sleet. With the option of inland and outland walking, I was able to take Cleveland Street Walk. The hedges offered me some protection from the elements. On the route, I met another man who said I was just as mad as he was. I'm not sure whether it's because I've heard Yorkshire being called the friendliest county, but since arriving in Yorkshire, I've been met with nothing but smiles and warmth. People are keen to know where you are going or to offer you a helping hand. When I got to Staves, it felt to me like a little Italian village hidden inside the cove. A lot of the shops were closed, and when I asked a local why this was, he replied, "There wasn't much point in opening. It's that time of year, and people probably won't come out in this weather." The cold had got to my hands and fingers, so I decided to thaw out in Dottie's cafe. You couldn't see through the glass, but I gave the door a push and went into a cosy, almost empty tea room. A group of adults were sitting at a table by the counter and asked me to join them. I decided to sit on my own in the back room. After leaving Staves, I followed the Cleveland Way. This is where I learnt my biggest lesson. I followed the bay, hoping to rejoin the coastal path through hobholes. There was a stream through the cliffs, but no marker for the coastal path. It was unusually well marked, so I turned back and continued to follow the sands. A man and his dog were following along behind me. Every now and again, I heard him call out, but I continued going. He gave a final call out, "Are you lost?" To which, and in my stubbornness, I replied that I was okay. But as it turns out, I had missed the path, even though the Ordnance Survey app had said there was a public footpath around here somewhere. It looked as though it was on the top of the cliff, and so I decided to climb, and scampering through knee-high plants, bracken and mosses, I climbed along the edge of the cliff, hoping that when I got to the top, a clear path might emerge, perhaps even some walkers. It didn't. It was just lots of dried up ferns and thorns. I didn't want to turn back, so I continued. As I ploughed forwards, the ferns began to untangle the laces on my boots. I couldn't be bothered to stop and tie them up. It was getting on for 4 o'clock. I didn't know how much daylight there was, and if the tide came in, there was no chance of backtracking. When the ferns turned to thick thorns, I accepted defeat and turned back. I put my phone into the pocket of my rucksack and descended down the edge of the shaly cliffs on my bottom, scolding myself for not being humble enough to ask for help. But in equal parts, this experience had given me that feeling, that this sense of risk and adventure was something that had been lacking up until now. Distance, 27.64 kilometres. Total distance, 4,040.34 kilometres.